Greetings, Zimbabwe, Africa, and the world. Welcome to In Conversation with Trevor, brought to you by Titan Law. I go beyond the headlines and beyond the sensational. Today, I'm in conversation with Doris Mufara, author, counselor, pastor, and a mother to many homeless children. Enjoy this truly inspirational conversation. Welcome to In Conversation with Trevor. Absolutely delighted to have you with us today.
Thank you so much, sir. It's really mind-blowing that I'm here too. Thank you for the honor. Thank you for the opportunity.
And please don't call me sir. Hey, call me Trevor. You make me feel old.
Oh.
Doris, so you are many things. You are an author. You are a trained pastor. You are a trained counselor.
Yes.
You are a wife to Stan,
Yes.
who I've met a number of times. You are a mother.
Yes.
You are a grandmother.
Yes.
But you're also a mother to many other children. We'll get to talk about that. Mm-hmm. The reason that we're here is primarily your book.
Yes.
Which you wrote about 2018, eh?
Yes.
And it's been out there, published in 2018. It's a book that I thought deserved for the nation to hear from you in terms of what made you write it, what was the thinking behind it. So I look forward to the conversation. So congratulations. How is the book done? The title is called Dare,
Yes.
a Diary to My Grandchildren. Dare, a Diary to My Grandchildren.
Yeah.
Why did you write this book?
So basically, as the title suggests, I wanted to leave a message for my grandchildren. My kids even asked me why it was not to them, and I said, you have me. I'm here now, and I'm talking to you, I'm teaching you, but somewhere in the future, there'll be a child who never get to know me because I'll have passed. But the book will still be relevant and the title will still be relevant. But also there are various other reasons, including emotional, including spiritual. The other day we had a conversation with my family about ancestral worship, and I said to them, listen, I'm doing what I have to do while I'm alive. When I'm gone, let me sleep, because I believe I'll sleep in Christ and I don't want to be disturbed. So those who want to know what my thought line was like and all that, they'll find it in the books that I'm writing and in whatever else I will have left behind. As for the title Dare, the reason why I called it Dare, it's actually Dare. This diary is part of 3. This is just the first installment. That is why it's addressed to a preteen little girl. Was inspired by my first granddaughter. And it's called Dare because the topics that I cover in there are things that I feel I want my grandchildren or children out there to dare do. You know, you have to be daring to dream crazy, to dream big. You have to be daring to make certain choices in life. So that's why you find that the book is titled that way. Everything in there is something that you have to dare to do. Yeah.
And it's something that you've got to dare to do. You gave me the privilege of reading the book prior to it being published.
Yes.
And I got to read it there afterwards. And it's mainly centered around your own life's experiences.
Yes.
And the courage to dare on all those things that you do write about. So it's you are encouraging people to dare to love, to dare to be bold, to dare to be adventurous, to dare to walk in faith, to dare to believe. So it touches on a number of things that did take place in your life. And you say, I wrote this book to challenge people to step up and make the choice to deal with the pain and hurt that challenges our identity and purpose. Talk to me about the things that you encountered in your life that made you rather feel compelled to sit down and write this book.
So my parents divorced when I was young, and even before the divorce, there was a lot of turmoil within the family. By age 10, they had gone separate ways. So you're looking at a situation where I had to deal with the pain before the actual breakup, the actual separation, and then the pain that came with the separation itself, with the divorce itself, you know, as a child. I think the strongest for me was the feeling of rejection, and guilt was in there as well. It was almost as if, did we do something wrong? I mean, how can a father decide that he no longer wants his wife and 5 children? And I was the firstborn. So that really started to map for me certain beliefs, certain viewpoints, which were very, very, very negative at that particular age. For instance, I became confused about the concept of love. I became confused about the concept of marriage. So generally relationship. But I feel as if even in that mess, there was this power, which I've come to acknowledge, and I acknowledged, you know, from a long time ago, that this was God. That was always there, whispering to me the truth. So somehow, despite the pain, I began to unravel the truth of love and the importance of relationship, and began to, over the years till now, began to understand, you know, I guess precept upon precept, you know, bit by bit, through the Word of God, began to get this revelation about what a real relationship must be. And that then also put me on a path of healing. And because it did that, I discovered who I was in this God. I discovered my identity, and my identity entrenched in His love. And out of that, my roles and the responsibilities that they carry, and I was then able to move on because of those little things that I learned over time to get me to where I am. And it's exactly because of that I want to leave a record and say, because the reality of pain is there, but I want to say, look, this is what happened, this is the mess, but this is the message I got out of this. This is the testimony that I got out of this. And this is how you can heal and make it in life.
Expand a bit on the mess itself. I know it must be a sensitive and a painful place to revisit.
Yes.
Growing up with from parents that have divorced. And you're already talking about asking yourself about marriage, about love, and other issues. What other issues did you have to deal with? What was life like for you growing up in a family where dad has walked away? And it makes you ask, but what kind of a father walks away from 5 children? What other issues did you find yourself having to battle with, and which you do deal with here?
Do you know the amazing thing? There was this grace. I realize now that there was a grace for me to carry certain burdens that I shouldn't have been carrying. So overnight I grew up because I'm the firstborn in my family. So it's almost like I had to take constant responsibilities that I was not meant to be taking on at that age. I was 11 when I had to be the one fighting for my siblings, when I had to worry about certain things. Of course, there were people. Thank God for my uncle, my mom's brother, who stepped in, but he was even single at that time. But at least, you know, you offered accommodation. You know, there was a shelter there for us. But in terms of responsibilities, I had to step up. Simple things like day-to-day chores, you know, cleaning up, washing up, cooking. I had to learn to do all that within the 24 hours that we've all been given while going to school at the same time. So that's one thing that comes in. So basically, when I'm talking about the physical effects, the day-to-day things that you have to be doing. Emotionally, I think I also grew up became very tough because I had to learn to be a decision maker at a very...
At what age? At age 11, 10?
11,
Wow.
Basically, mainly at age 11 going forward. I guess the process had started prior, but the divorce having gone through when I was 10, these things, really took effect when I was 11. So yeah, so the burden of being the one, the emotional burden of being the one to deal not only with self, but with whatever it is that society or the environment is throwing at us, as siblings. The greater burden also fell on me. So if I saw my little sister being bullied, I'm the one who had to step up and deal with that. So if there was emotional abuse, if there was physical abuse on any of us, ultimately I also had to deal with that. But I must thank God for people like my uncle. He was there financially, he was there materially. It's just that, he was a young man and he needed to work as well. So, you know how it is. Someone goes to work, they're away from home from 8 o'clock till evening. So basically, those are some of the things that I remember. And then on a spiritual level, that's another thing. So my parents introduced me to church. And I emphasize that church because in terms of having my personal relationship with Christ, it then happened independently. It was like an encounter for me. But they did introduce me to church. But when the divorce happened, you can imagine that even that spiritual cover that a father is supposed to give to his children was also taken away. And I feel like it then allowed in, on a spiritual level, certain elements to come in and affect us as children. Other things, basically, obviously, your in terms of life, your lifestyle is taken away from you. Were you ever on the streets? Were you thrown on the streets? No.
Okay.
No. We
so
were never
uncle
on
provided
the
the roof for you too.
Yes, he did.
Okay.
And we're coming from a background where it was all good and we all that we wanted and a bit of what
suddenly it wasn't there.
It wasn't there. And now life has really become basic and we had to adjust to that. So these are things that that really affected me. And I think one big thing was how then both parents were able to move on, and find love again. But and I don't hold any. I don't have any problem with that. No grudge whatsoever, no anger whatsoever, because my mom was a very good person. She was a lovely, God-fearing woman. Believed in the dignity of marriage and all of that. So I'm happy that she was able to find love again. Are
they both still alive?
No, my mom passed on 2002, if I remember well. But my dad, my biological dad, died when I was 17. And since the divorce, I never got an opportunity to see him again and even tell him that, I forgave you and all of that. But that's the other thing, that...
Any regrets about that?
No, I don't, because I think for me, this is the thing. I discovered my ultimate father, God. So he became an escape route for me. And because of my relationship with God at age 17, just 2 weeks before my father died, I had forgiven him. There's something that had happened, and I believe God orchestrated all of it because I was very angry. I was very bitter towards him. I was a very, very angry little girl because of what I saw him do, even to my mom, and the fact that I heard him say certain things. So fortunately, I had an encounter where, an experience where someone talked to me because I wouldn't open the letter that my father had written finally to me. He had written to my brother and then he wrote to me and I wouldn't open it. So this auntie of mine sat me down and said certain words to me and said, look, if you grow up like this, you're gonna kill somebody. You're too young to be like this. And I did reflect on that. And I didn't know that God was actually using her because in that moment, I realized, look, he was only human. He made a mistake. Now he's trying to make amends. And I broke down and I cried and I forgave him. And suddenly I wished if only I could see him again, because he knew that I hated him. Then I can tell him, it's all right, I've forgiven you, let's move on. But 2 weeks down the line, we heard that he died.
Was that part of your encounter with God that changed, transformed you?
Yes.
Talk to me about that.
Forgiveness is a powerful thing. It's supernatural. I don't think anyone alive has the ability to forgive on their own. You need God's ability. I remember one time being taught to stay in forgiveness in advanced mode, by revelation, because things will happen. Life will throw things at you. Such is what happened between my parents. So when I was able to enter that space, whether I knew and understood it at all in that moment, it was very liberating. Just realizing, oh, he's only human, and he's not the first person to have fallen to this temptation.
And yet I've carried it for so long.
And yet I've carried it for so long, and it has made me this bitter, angry. I mean, people used to give me, I had nicknames, because of my temper and all of that. So forgiving him in that moment was liberating. And even though I never got an opportunity to tell him, God knew. So for me, that was all right. Yeah.
Tell me about the experience. I mean, the experience of writing the book must have been like going back again to those painful moments that you endured. Must have been like reliving that pain, the verbal abuse that you talk about, the physical abuse that you talk about. Talk to me about the experience of actually writing the book itself.
I think writing the book was not so difficult, because ever since I discovered that I didn't have to keep the pain to myself, that I could not just talk to myself and God, but I could go and talk to somebody. Bit by bit over the years, I was able to release the pressure of all of that. And then I think my role as a pastor, my role as a counselor also helped, because I remember even when I went through counseling school, one of the things I did was to practically go for counseling myself, because I wanted to see how the professionals did it. But I didn't know that this was real. And as I went through the counseling sessions, there are certain things that I was able to release, and I cried my heart out and all of that. And then over the years, like I said, I would testify to people about my life. So by the time I had to write the book, the pressure was really coming from my little granddaughter, who had just come into the world. And after years of contemplating that I was going to write, I'd had this idea for years, I was struck with this reality. I could die before I did this, and she's already here. So I sat down for a few months, I think it was 2-3 months, that I just sat there every day for at least 2 hours and wrote the book. But the experiences that I share in there, sometimes I would laugh. And sometimes I would look at this and just look up to heaven and say, but God, you're great. Because here I am today, and I'm able to smile having gone through this, and this is going to be used for the good of somebody. So it wasn't as hard as emotionally. It wasn't as hard. It was actually quite a joy to do it.
So as you know, I bought 10 of these books.
Yes.
I've given them all away.
Yes.
And the feedback I'm getting from a lot of people that I've given the book away is pretty positive. The book is entitled A Diary to My Grandchildren.
Yeah.
But after reading it, I get the sense that it's actually a book for all parents,
Yes.
for all mothers,
Yes.
for all grandmothers,
Yes.
for the teenagers. It's a book for everybody, even if it's a letter to our grandchildren. Is that something that you stumbled upon, or that was your deliberate intent when you started?
I think it was God's deliberate intent. Someone said I said to someone, it's a good book, and they were surprised. And I said to them, it's not about me. I tried the best I could as a human being to allow God's message to flow onto these pages. But the thing is this. A while back, some few years back, I started getting this revelation that I needed to, you know, my vision is about healing hearts to mend relationships. And I got this revelation that a lot of people we see, no matter the age, most of them have a young one still hurting inside. So that's why I think this book will speak to anybody. Because we all were little children. We were all conceived, and we all went through this journey. And there are things that happened along the journey. So maybe at one time somebody, when they were 6, they were afraid of the boogeyman under the bed. But now they are 60. And the boogeyman has just turned into a certain fear, a different type of fear, a fear of death, a fear of failure, a fear of whatever. So I think that's why that book applies to anybody. When you read it, it speaks to that inner person. Remember that we age outwardly. It's the flesh that ages. The spirit remains young. So I think in terms of the issue of deliverance, sometimes people need to liberate that young person. Maybe it was when they were 6, maybe when they were 8, when maybe they were 15, maybe 23, that they got hurt and they have to deal with that. But now they are grown. So it will speak to anybody. It will speak to parents. And then the reason why it will speak to parents, I think when you look at where we are coming from, the breakdown of the family unit, a lot of people are now parents, but never really experienced God's model of parenthood. Recently, my daughter asked me in August during the Heroes holidays, she said to me, my firstborn, she's 26 now, she said to me, Mom, do you want to share about your heroes? And I said to her, come to think of it, I think my heroes are people like your father, people like my brothers-in-law, who have kept their families together despite the odds. They are allowing God to paint his perfect picture for what family should be like, despite the dysfunctionalities and imperfections of us as individuals. So a lot of people are parents, but there was never a manual. There was never role models to actually show them what parenting is like. I'm living that experience with my own family, with my husband and our 4 children and my granddaughter, because of the broken place where I'm coming from. And this is now my experience. So these guys are my heroes because they're painting for me what it is like to be in a place where a father cares, a husband cares for his wife, cares for. So when people read that book, if they're coming from the kind of background that I'm coming from, it will speak to them. When grandparents are reading this book, it will speak to them because of my little granddaughter that I'm talking to. My own daughter is a single parent. So again, because of what happened to her, the decisions that she made, and how she ended up being a single parent, was an inspiration for me to then write this book. And
so the book has spoken to me. It has spoken to a lot of mothers I've given the book away to, and some of them have bought it for their teenage girls and teenage boys. And you speak about something now which I think is very important, that there is this young person in all of us, and in most instances that young person was hurt.
Yes.
When they were young. And the hurt is still there. And you are very big on heart issues. And you say heart issues tend to stand in the way of our purpose and our identity. Do you want to unpack that for us?
So maybe let me use my example. We've already talked about how hurt I was by my parents' divorce. And my perception of marriage was twisted. My perception of love was twisted. How did I get the correct perspective back? It was because of the healing process that happened when I began to discover the love of God, my identity in the love of God, the power of forgiveness. And that is what brought healing. I look at a person with a broken heart as a broken vessel. So a broken vessel can't hold much. Okay, can hold some, depending on what you pour in it, but can't hold much. So broken people will find it hard to build relationships, to build healthy relationships. Broken people will find it hard to be good leaders. The reason why we may find it hard to break out of poverty, even as African people, is because a lot of leaders, people in leadership, are broken. All right. So you're coming from a background where you were hurt as a child. Maybe you lacked the basics of life, including food. You are put in a leadership position. What are you going to do? Chances are all you're going to be thinking of is me, myself, and I. What can I do to accumulate for myself? Instead of holding people that you're supposed to be leading and working with them to achieve a greater goal. So broken hearts will affect people in a lot of areas, be it in relationships, be it in the corporate world, as managers, be it in politics, in all of that.
So you raise this, what I call the big question. You say, what kind of a future could we create if our next generation of leaders were leading from a place of wholeness and purpose instead of hurt and pain? There's so much hurt and pain out there.
And that's a big question. I'm also trying to wrap my head around that. What is it that you and I are supposed to do right now to build a better future? Look at it this way. I've interacted a lot with children on the streets through Grace Foundation, a foundation we founded a few years ago. It's got about 4 trustees currently. And I believe that even among them, given the opportunity, if we could see what God saw, we would find great people, gifted, be it artists, be it intellectuals, be it in every area. So for me, that's a big question. What do you and I do? Is it possible for us to take a step back, look at the systems within which we are surviving today? Be it the educational system, be it the family system. Can we do more to build the future generations? I am so grateful to people like my husband, my brother-in-law, other people out there, you, who are willing to go out into the world and hold the hand of somebody who does not have parents. But then you begin to parent them and you begin to mentor them and you begin to provide that cover that brings in emotional stability, that brings in spiritual cover and all of that, material cover. And just give them a chance, an opportunity in life. What kind of world would it be if all of us would just take responsibility? I'm not talking about being rich and doing huge philanthropic work. I'm saying look in your community, look in your family. You've got your brother's son or daughter right there in the family. You've got somebody who you can probably go to and say, you know what, I'll help you. I'll give you a stepping stone. If it's money they need, if it's fees, if it's help to start a project. Instead of us relying on systems where we expect big organizations to come into our families and our communities and make a difference. So I'm thinking if we all cared about the next person, if we all looked at what real love is, not as defined by the world, if we stop conjuring up our own definitions, but discovered pure love and what it does, pure love will put the next person first. It will open your eyes to opportunities that are right there with you to make a difference in someone's life and bring healing and bring wholeness. And
you're saying this doesn't require lots of resources.
No, it doesn't.
You don't have to be a millionaire to be a philanthropist. You can do with little that you have to help in building this broken society that we're living in.
Before I left home, I got a message from someone who has agreed to sponsor a young man through university. And they were confirming what fees, how much they need to pay, how much they need to send. This young man I met through my children. My children came and said, you know what, there's a young man who lives by that corner there. He's in university, but he's so distraught because he can no longer afford, he's in his first year, but he can no longer afford to pay his fees. and we told him he could see you. So I'm looking at my son, and I'm looking at my little girls, and I said to them, it's okay, tell them to come and see me. So he came home and we sat down and I asked him about what was going on in his life, and he's been trying to put himself through university by doing some part-time work when he's on semester break. So he was expecting $2,000. But now, remember, earlier on in the year, the fees went up. And it was not even half of what he needed. So the question is, what now? What do we do now? And here's a man who has agreed, just by talking to them. This is a man with his own family. He's got 2 kids who are in university. Yes. And I put word around. And they said, I can help you, because I had 2 cases. And they said, I can help you with 1. And I said, that's fine. So initially my family, my daughters, my son, put in a little bit of money from their own savings, and we were able to pay some balance for him. And today we received that message to say they are paying for his fees for this coming semester. These are not rich guys. They are not millionaires.
But
they have responsibility. They're making a difference.
We can all make a difference.
Within their own family, within the nuclear family, within the extended family, and then they are going beyond. And this is exactly what my husband has done for several other young people. And I am in awe, because when I look at those several young people, all of them, you should see the greatness in their lives right now. They are all putting their own siblings through school. They are doing so well career-wise. It is just amazing. But when you look at where they are coming from, all they needed was someone to believe in them and push them, give them that necessary push to be where they are
And
today.
we can all do that.
We can all do that. All of us, we can all do that.
Before we go, you do amazing work in this space. But before we go there, I wanted just to deal with an issue where you say, and working on heart issues is a matter of choice, a matter of bravery, and a matter of ownership. That's tough, that.
Yes. Because at the end of the day, it all comes down to you. It all comes down to your, to the individual. You must own every decision that you make. I said I work with children who've been on the streets. They are not the most easy people to help. It's not a question of just going in and saying, we want to help you. And you think that they're going to fall into place and do exactly as you want, or as you expect them to. We were trying to help someone recently. They stole from us and ran off. But you can tell they really, really, really need help. So it still boils down to an individual to say, yes, I am broken. And to stop being angry, not only with self, but with everybody around. Stop being angry with the world and decide that I do deserve to be happy. I do deserve to be whole. But it's up to me. Because when that help comes, be it through counseling, be it through financial assistance, whatever it is, whatever the nature of the help comes, be it through the words that you hear me speak, or Mr. Nwe, or a pastor, or someone on radio, you've got to receive it and take it and own it and use it yourself. You've got to come to that point where it's just about you and the power within.
So you've started, you founded Grace Foundation and Place of Prayer. Talk to us in detail in terms of the work that you're doing. I know you're dealing with homeless people.
Yes.
You're dealing with women who are facing challenges. You're dealing with young people. Describe to us the work that you're doing and the resources that are required to do that kind of work.
Wow. So Grace Foundation, a few years ago, I think I'd been pastoring for like 6-7 years or so, I started getting restless. And the big question, or the big statement that I kept hearing was, do you know, child, that you should not get comfortable with the pulpit? So just about you praying and fasting, preparing a word for Sunday, and standing at the pulpit, preaching and getting all those hallelujahs, praise God, I receive, feedback. I need you to take the church to the world. There are people who are hurting out there. Over 4 years, you know, my eyes started getting opened to the young women, children on the streets begging. You know, you park, you're driving, you're parked, or you're at an intersection. A young woman comes carrying a very sickly child because they're using that to emotionally blackmail you so that you can give them some money. And God started opening my eyes and saying to me, it's not just about emotional blackmail. There is more to what's going on there. There's a lot of brokenness, and these people are multiplying every day on the streets of Harare. And as a matter of fact, there are some who were born on the streets who now have their own children on the streets. You gotta get in there. And after 4 years, I had this spiritual experience. Later on, I realized it was a visitation. I'm not going to go into details, but then the voice said to me, I'm yearning for their souls. So it's not just about material things and all of that, but you gotta go and preach the word to them as well. Because even if they died poor, but they are rich in that they have Christ, they have eternal life. So that's how Grace Foundation was founded. Even the name in full means God remembers all children everywhere.
Wow.
Even though it came as Grace First, and then I realized it was just an acronym when I saw those words. But the point is this, we need to get out of our comfort zones as Christians. We were debating the other day, what's a Christian? And I was saying people were called Christians in the Bible. Jesus never taught us to be Christians. He taught us to be believers and to live a certain lifestyle.
And to love each other.
Based on Matthew 22, verse 31 up to 32, thereabouts of 40. Love your God. There are two important commandments. Love your God with all your heart, mind, and soul. And the second one is as important. Love your neighbor as yourself. That's what he taught us.
Those are the two most important commandments.
And then what's the most true, what God calls true religion. James 1:27 talks about visiting the orphan, the widow, and you living a holy life. So for me, it's going back to what are we as people doing to help the downtrodden, the poor, and all of that. So that's how Grace Foundation was founded. Currently, I'm working, after 2 years of going onto the streets after that visitation I was talking about, I literally ran, no resources, nothing, just what is in the pantry with a friend. You know, the funny thing was after I had that experience and I called her, she was like, I was about to call you. You know, I've had this burden, we gotta go. So we started going to Mbare. And then it was only when we went there that I began to understand that God wanted us to interact, to understand why these people are there. So after 2 years, we then took a step back to say, so how can we more effectively help? So now you find that we've been collaborating with other organizations, including those who are already running homes, so that we can get some of these kids interested to get off the streets and get into certain programs. We also involved in what is called the Moral Culture Change to Prevent Child Abuse with several other organizations, where we are saying, look, we've been over time normalizing the abnormal. How can we take people back to understanding a moral culture so that we can prevent child abuse?
This is a huge piece of work that you've taken upon yourself.
It is. Like, let me repeat this. I'm also trying to wrap my head around it still. And then place of prayer, it's necessary because it has to merge the two worlds. Our world where we believe we are normal, we've got it all figured out. In that world of those broken people. When you're dealing with these people, you're dealing with spiritual issues. So we need prayer. When I'm dealing with orphans, when I'm dealing with street kids, I'm getting myself involved in a spiritual warfare that my family doesn't even understand, I don't even understand, but might have, whether positive or negative impact. There's warfare in doing what we're doing. So Place of Prayer was really started so that we can be praying about these issues, praying about organizations that are involved in this kind of work, bringing partners on board on a spiritual level and financial level and so on and so forth. So basically, that's why those two organizations are there. I took a step back from Place of Prayer again because things started happening where miracles did happen. I remember praying for a young child in Ireland who had eczema. It disappeared. Locally, we had a number of several miracles happening. But then the big question came, because what God was showing me was that it was not about me being a superstar and having people calling me and saying, pray for me. But for me to go and teach people how to stand on their own 2 feet in prayer. Because the power of God can flow in all of us through prayer. Parents, siblings can pray for each other at home, and miracles can happen. Yeah.
So as you sit here, what's the biggest challenge? I mean, if the people that are watching us all over the world, if they wanted to reach out to you, what's the biggest challenge? What's the biggest resource that you need to deal with some of those challenges?
Of course, we need money. I gotta be honest, we need money. Because there are a lot of children who need help, but you can't help them fully without money. It's so, Jesus Christ and his disciples kept a treasure. Somebody, I think Judas was the one who kept the banking account, you know, the cash, so that where they needed to use money, they used money. So it's not just about the word, it's not just about prayer, but it's also about being practical, putting children in college, because you find that because of the nature of the objectives of Grace Foundation, we basically meet children across the board. It may be a child with their mother and father, it may be a teenager, it may even be a young adult, like I was talking to you about earlier on, who's striving to go through university. I've got a young lady right now, she found a sponsor for her first semester, this coming semester at UZ, but she needs support in order for her to make it. And if she's not going to end up prostituting herself, we need not just to help her emotionally and spiritually, we need to pay fees for her. So we do need money, we need partners to come on board. We are in Epworth right now, under the MCCPA. We need to be having workshops with parents. There are cases of 2 men whose wives died and left them with little babies who need to be on formula. Those guys need counseling. The children need resources in terms of milk and all of that. So it's wide, it's huge, but at the end of the day, money is also an answer. But we also need prayer partners. We also need people who are willing to just say, you know what, this is all I have. How can I help you? We are doing mentorship classes. We need resources in order for us to effectively do that. We're looking even in terms of equipment that we need to have these workshops, to have these mentorship programs. All of it at the end of the day hinges on money. But we need to go to places where other people are not willing to go. I am willing to go to sit in the dirt, to stand in the dirt. My young sister the other day, no, actually a few months ago, maybe just before the lockdown, found me per Cleveland House. I think you know what Cleveland House is. And I was surrounded by all my children. All of them are drunk on glue. Mama, mama, you know, and I was talking to them and we're preaching the word of God to them in their state. My young sister saw me from a distance and she came to me very tentatively. She was very apprehensive. Hi, Sissy. She knows what I do. She had to be honest with me. She looked at me in the eye and she said, Sissy, I gotta go. I can't take this, you know. And she ran off. I understood. I'm able to do that.
Why?
But
why? Where do you get the strength
I
from?
think
This is difficult stuff.
I think it's grace. I think it's a special grace. I say this humbly. I don't think I am better than any other person out there with a good heart and would like to help. But I think there's a special grace that comes with that. It's not easy. I've asked myself the same question. But I remember one time praying to the Lord and saying, I don't want to be self-centered, and I want to be his instrument. I want to be his feet. I want to be... I don't know if you know a song by Cece Winans, where she talks about, I want to be like you. I want to teach like you. I want to walk like you. It hit me one time, and I cried, and I prayed, and I said, Lord, here I am. You know, just use me as you want. And then after that, I started having these weird experiences and being led there. So I don't mind going there. I don't mind hugging those children. Vakadakwa neglu, you know.
Have you? I mean, a group of them around you, they are high on glue. This must be tough.
It is tough.
Do you sometimes feel like walking away? Where do you go to when it's so difficult for you, and what do you get out?
It's amazing when I'm with them. I just see God's creatures. And I remember the first time a friend of mine, she founded another organization that we've partnered with, Smile. I remember the first time she went with us on the streets, I ended up counseling her. Because she was like, I didn't know. It
can't be easy.
Yeah, I didn't know. And it was after we encountered this little girl. She's about 13, 15. She's sleeping in the sun, burning. And she gets up and we're talking to her and she's saying, all I want is, freeze it. Can you buy me a freeze it? Someone took out some money and bought her freeze it, and she's shivering and she couldn't stand that. And we had to take her to the car, to counsel her, and then even after that we had to talk it over. How do I do it? Mm-hmm. I think the training I got as a counselor helped a lot. And then, like I said, more than that, there's a grace that comes with this. And when it really gets tough, I do talk to my husband. He offers a shoulder for me to lean on and to just be me and talk to him about the challenges. And most importantly, when he is not even there, my kids are not even there, no one is there, I have him. And we have these, heart-to-heart talks sometimes where I'm just crying to him and saying, look, I need more of you. I need more grace. So that's basically how I've done it. And,
Stan, your husband, is a big supporter.
Very.
The kids are a big supporter, and I know you've built you've got a big community of people supporting you. That must give you strength.
It does.
And indeed, the biggest leaning shoulder, which is God.
I think a husband must be an enabler. I know if we were to delve into this, I might say some controversial issues.
Please proceed.
But when you look at God's pattern of a marriage, he's my head, I'm his body. So I'm basically kind of an extension. So when the head is functioning and understanding, not just that he himself is the head, is the visionary. He's the architect, or he has to come up with the blueprints for his family. But that blueprint, those architectural plans, that vision includes what God has put in his wife and what God has put in his children. And he's able to see that and enable them. Then we have problems. Then we will have problems. But Stan has been able to come to a point where he is appreciated. I think he has come to appreciate the crazy me. He has come to appreciate the very difficult me, the stubborn me, but also the woman that God gifted, I think, the world with, if I may put it that way, because he's not just taking care of his 4 children and his granddaughter. Through allowing me to do what I do, he's taken care of many, many other young men and women. I'm talking about a man who, when they come to us and say, we want to get married, or I want to marry, he is there because they lost their father, they lost their parents, and he's standing in the gap. So I don't even think I'm the one, I don't think he's supporting what I'm doing. I think we are supporting each other. In him fulfilling who he is, I'm also being fulfilled. In him allowing me to be who God purposed me to be, he's also enabling himself.
Stan is the quiet one in the marriage. I mean, he's quiet. He's in the background. That's my reading of him. And you are crazy out there doing all these crazy things. But the one thing that you share, one story that you share there is that you go on talking about wanting a motorbike. And wanting Harley Davidson or And Stan listens to you, and you think he's not listening, but he pitches up one day with a motorbike for you. That's the kind of support that you've gotten from Stan.
Yeah, it's something that I used to talk about, and I would forget about it, but it would come back until one day I really looked at it and asked God, what is this thing? And God started talking to me. It's there in the book. When I talk about Dare to Dream Crazy, God showed me that I was putting limitations on something that He's been trying to show me for years, that I kept making excuses. I can't ride a bike because I'm a woman. I can't, or besides, look at my age. I'm turning 50 next year. And I was having this conversation with God about 4 maybe or so years ago. And in the meantime, I've been talking about this thing and my husband doesn't say anything. You know, and after prayer, I'm making inquiries about how I could get a motorbike. I'm talking to my brothers-in-law, I'm talking to friends, some are in the diaspora. And he's quiet. And 2 days before he brought the bike, I'm sitting there and it hits me. I've never heard my husband comment about this issue. But before I had an opportunity to ask him about it, he comes. I was at that time at Showgrounds. We used to run this place, this restaurant, and I'm in the office. And he comes and I hear his voice and I'm thinking, at this hour, what is he doing here? It's mid-morning. And he walks into the office and he says to me, hey, you, it's you who says you want a motorbike. Come, come. And he grabs my hand and he's got these curious looking keys and say, come and see. And I get outside and there are these 3 motorbikes on this track and he says, one is yours. And so after that, I went for some lessons, and after 3 or 4, I could ride, get up to about 30 kilometers per hour. But then obviously other things came into play, including COVID, and I've not yet been able to get my license, which I am going to start get. And yes, of course, I've got a bigger dream. I want the real deal. I really want a very big black and silver motorbike.
What is it called? The Harley-Davidson?
Whether it's a Harley-Davidson, whether it's a Honda, whether it's a Yamaha, but something. I'm not talking about a scooter. I'm talking about a real motorbike. And the one that Stan got me is big. It's huge. It's nice. I really like it. But it's quite high. So we're talking about that and seeing whether we can get somebody to buy it and we buy something appropriate, because I'm a short person. Yeah, someone has promised to train me to use it anyway, but I don't want a situation where people are going to come and say, what do you think you were doing after I break my hand?
With all that support, you have written this book and you are in the process of writing a second one.
Yes.
And you have decided to start the DARE movement, and you're distributing this book for free to the homeless kids. Talk to me about that. So
what we would like to do, when I gave this book to several people to read, and we realized that it will make a very good manual for children who don't have parental guidance. So we've used it in I don't know whether to call it a pilot, in an experiment. Within a certain home, it takes care of young men who agree to go into their program, and they give them shelter for about 18 months and they put them through training. One of the things that was missing was the mentorship aspect. And they said, can you come in and use this book? It was amazing. You're talking about young men who are coming from a broken background, who have walls up. They've locked themselves in shells where they don't trust people. But by the time we do the 3rd chapter, and we've gone through issues of identity in God and the importance of forgiveness and all of that, they begin to open up. And now they want counseling. So we've realized that it is a tool that we can help, that we can use to bring a holistic approach in helping young men, young women, even children who are in homes. You do know that social welfare, if I'm not mistaken, they are no longer allowing more homes to be opened. There's advocacy out there, which we support, for adoption and fostering. But those homes are still there. So I want to go in and support people who are working with these young men, with these young women, with these children, and use that as a tool where we can come up with a mentorship program, and we give them that as a resource on top of everything else. The financial help, the material help that they'll be getting.
What has been the biggest satisfaction for you from doing this work that God has set you to do? What's been the biggest exciting thing?
You know, when you discover who you are and you walk your purpose and then you see the fruits, it's very fulfilling. And I'm not talking fruits as in financial, but you bring healing to a broken heart, to a relationship. A marriage is mended. A relationship is mended. That for me is the highlight. That for me, and it's not so much about the numbers. You know how it works. You know, you speak to 100 people, so chances are you're going to get 5 to buy into the idea. It is about that one person that you make a difference in their lives that is long lasting. That for me has been fulfilling. That has been the highlight for me.
And I mean, as an author yourself, I'm sure there are books that you've read that have changed your life, and we're now going to get into the book section and ask you, what books have you read that you would want to recommend to our viewers? Just 3?
Let me talk about, to narrow it down. Recently, I've read a book by Audrey Chirenje. She's a young author, upcoming author. And it taught me that there's a message, there's a way that God wants us to write. Because then it resonated to how I'm writing my first novel. In fact, it's almost done. There have been a lot of narratives that have been thrown out there through media, including TV, film. Yeah. And that has had adverse effects. And God now wants us to write in a way that we are suggesting possible solutions. So be it a marriage that had totally broken down, be it somebody who had already given up on love, through writing you can show them that no, you can be happy again, you can start on a new slate. So Audrey Chirenje's book, had that impact on me. It made me reflect on my own writings and why God is downloading the way he's downloading his message today. There's a Shona book I read, and this is going to be funny, but it had no cover, both ways. But I was given this book to read, and it taught me how to speak Shona. And I'm talking about years ago. It got me interested in reading Shona novels, Vesevana, Maidei. I've even forgotten most of the titles, but when I was in school, I read a lot of Shona, and then it helped me develop my Shona language.
What is the book called?
The one that I read.
Yeah.
It had no cover.
Right.
So this uncle gave it to me to read to help me learn Shona. Remember, I was born in Zambia.
Yeah.
So after the divorce, that's when we moved to Zimbabwe. But the point why this book is special to me, and I keep looking for it, I want to look for it and find it, is because through that book I learned how to speak Shona and appreciate our language, appreciate Shona.
Wow. And
I read so many Shona novels, aside from the English novels that I used to read, Franklin W. Dixon, even Ian Fleming, Enid Blyton, all of them. Shona, for me, was so special. I even got a B at O level, which surprised everybody.
And this book did it.
And this book did it, because then it got me into a journey of reading Shona novels. And this is an argument that I've had with a lot of parents. This is why I'm bringing it up. Please, let's get our children to read Shona and to appreciate our mother tongue.
That's an important point.
It is very important.
Yeah. And the third book?
The third book for me would be a book by Lois Lowry. Again, I read it when I was very young. It was called Find a Stranger and Say Goodbye. It also became a catalyst. It also helped me find my identity in God. So it was basically a book about a young lady, a young girl about to go to a college, who had a lot of questions about her identity because she realized she didn't look like her mother or her father or her sister. And she thought something was amiss. The long and short of it, she discovered she was adopted. And they had to be honest with her. And she embarked on a journey to find her mom. And the surprising thing was this. She sees her mother and knows that this is my mom because they look alike. They have this talk. And eventually, so I'm paraphrasing, but what I understood was, she eventually says to her, I'm happy that I found you. You are the woman who, like my biological parent, you know, you brought me into this world. Thank you for doing that. But now let me go back to my father and my mother.
Wow.
To my family. And when her parents, the ones who had brought her up from when she was a baby, when she was given up for adoption, when they saw her coming, they couldn't believe it. But the whole point was, she was showing them that you are my parents. And again, why do I bring this book up? Goes back even to the purpose I was talking about. We can all be parents, even to people that children we did not give a birth to biologically. We can be fathers, we can be mothers. They are there, lots of them in our communities. It has molded how I see parenthood. Yeah.
Wow. Awesome books that you're recommending there. This book is a book that I've read, and it's a book that I strongly recommend. It's a book, I think, that says it takes a village to raise a child. It takes all of us to build a society. It's a book that's full of courage, full of wisdom. So I recommend it. Doris, thank you for the book. We look forward to the many books that we hope are going to come from you. We thank you for the work that you are doing. You are a philanthropist in many respects.
Thank you.
Like you said, you don't have to be a millionaire to be a philanthropist. We can all build this nation and build the society with the little that we have. So we're grateful for that, and thank you for finding the time to come and join us today in Conversation with Trevor. We wish you all the best with all the work that you're doing, and may God continue to strengthen you, give you the wisdom, and cover you as you do his work. So thank you so much. Allow me now to turn to our viewers all over the world. Thank you so much for supporting this show. We are overwhelmed by your support. We are humbled by your support. To ensure that you don't miss out on this weekly show, please subscribe to In Conversation with Trevor by pressing this button. And we have started podcasts on these shows. And if you scroll down each conversation, you'll find links to the podcast there. Please click there and listen to the podcast. Watch the show, share. And by the way, we read all your comments, and most of your comments do suggest to us who we should be talking to, and we value those comments. So thank you for watching. Until next time, cheers to you all.